Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Hopefully, as you start to connect, microphones will come on, video cameras will come on. So, yeah, everyone's busy joining us. So, I'm going to ask you, everyone, speakers and audience, please turn your cameras on because if we want to make this a really interactive presentation, then the best is to be able to see each other. Otherwise, we're just going to get some blank screens. So, unless your camera isn't working, go ahead and turn it on. It really doesn't make a difference if you've got your makeup and your hair not done, you haven't shaved, got the wrong t-shirt on, all good. Just join us anyway and we can have some fun. And, I want to welcome everyone, including all of our fantastic speakers this afternoon. Because the topic we have is really an important topic when you think about it. When we talk about operational leasing market, we're going to talk about the new trends and growth opportunities that exist for this market. So, why do we want to talk about these topics? And it's not just because it's a nice, hot, trendy topic, but because we've really got, with our speakers, we've really got some amazing value and insights to bring for you, which I know you're going to find incredibly useful. So while we just give everyone another couple of seconds to join, because everyone's running maybe a little bit late, I'm going to ask everyone to open up their chat boxes and please, drop in the chat box. Let us know where you're connecting from. I want to see who the furthest person is from Italy. So everyone, if you can, open up your chat boxes. You'll find that, you're all natives on Zoom, so I'm sure you know where you can find your chat boxes, but go ahead and open up the chat box, drop into the chat box, where are you connecting from this afternoon? And, maybe you're in North America, maybe you're in Asia. I would just love to know where everyone is connecting from. I'm based in Zurich, in Switzerland. My name is 𝗟𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗲𝘁𝗶. For those of you who haven't heard me speak before or haven't seen me before, but I'd love to know where everyone else is connecting from. Thanks, Angela. Angela's in the UK. And also, while we're at it, and, I'm not just, where are you connecting from? Because I want to know who's the furthest away, as well as, who's got the best weather out there. Matteo, grazie, da Milano. So wonderful. Nice to meet you. Domenico from da Venezia, one of my favorite cities in the world. That's where my family comes from, that region. Absolutely beautiful. For those of you who are not in Italy and have never been to Venice, you really must go. Wonderful place. Jose, welcome from Madrid, 29 degrees. I am jealous, my friend. I am jealous. I think we got about 17 degrees. At least it's not raining. Lake Como, another beautiful area. Katerina from Israel, 27. Thank you for everyone who's dropping the stuff into the chat box. I really like to participate. We want to make this interactive as well as learn something. So, what do you say, Claudia? Shall we give it another minute, or do you think we are ready to go, Claudia?
Maybe we can wait for another 2 minutes, maybe.
Okay, then we can wait
1 minute, yes.
Then we can wait for another 2 minutes. That's perfectly fine. Then what I would also going to ask everyone, everyone's come there with a reason. I mean, obviously you've got one burning question that you would like to ask. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say to you, go ahead. You've got the chat box already opened. Filippo from Madrid, hola. Nice to meet you. Welcome. And open up the chat box if you've closed it. And, if you've got any burning questions, start to drop those in right now. So then what we can do is, we're going to have a Q&A at the end of the session. We want to make sure we're not going to miss any of your questions. But at the same time, if you already start dropping your questions in at any moment in time, and the reason I say do it now is because, one, you've come on and you've got an idea of why you're here. So drop that in. Because otherwise, if you're like me, I tend to think of things and then I hear something else and I forget about it and I don't ask the question. I then go back and I'm sitting in the shower and I go, I should have asked that question. So don't be like me, be more proactive. And if you've got the question, just drop it into the chat box right away. Then as well as our speakers can, see how we can already integrate your, potentially your answer into the conversation if we haven't already covered it. And if not, again, as I say, we will have a Q&A and cover all open questions right at the end. So, Claudia, you think we're good to go?
Yes, I think it's time to start.
I think so. I like to reward the people that are on time. So let's reward the people that are on time. All our speakers are here. So firstly, I want to reach out and say thank you to all of our wonderful, wonderful speakers that are here this afternoon. Thank you for your time, as well as, thank you for the audience, because you've given up time, and, time is the same for everyone. And that's one thing that we've all got the same, and we can never get time back. So, the intention today is really to honor your time and give you some good, insightful, valuable information. So quickly, I'm just going to quickly introduce our fantastic lineup of speakers. First up is going to be Angela Montacute. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Digital Inc. So, she's coming all the way out of the UK. Her bio will appear in the next couple of slides. But I just want to reach out and say, Angela, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I can see you there. It's wonderful to have you. Hopefully you can unmute yourself and just say hi to our audience.
Yeah, hello everybody. Delighted to be here. Thank you, Roberto. And yeah, you can see who I am on the slide there. But please reach out via LinkedIn or other channels if after this this session you've got any questions. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. And it's wonderful, that you've joined us all the way from the UK. So thank you so much. We'll get started with your question in just a second. I also want to present one of our other speakers, 𝗧𝗿𝗲𝗿𝘁𝗶𝗴. Hopefully I pronounced it right, Louise. I've been practicing. If I got it wrong, you can smack me later, but hopefully I got it right. And he's the founder of his own mobility consulting agency. Now, he's been around for many, many years in our industry. Jose, maybe you can just turn your camera on as well. Perfect, I like it. There you are. So at least our audience can see how good looking and handsome you are.
Well, thank you for that, however untrue. Anyway, thank you for the invitation. I'm very happy to be here. And thank you to all the audience for the time and attention.
Excellent, no, thank you. And lastly, I've kept ekaterina last because we're really presenting everyone in order that we're going to be answering questions. But ekaterina Kostina, welcome all the way from Israel. You almost win the warm weather competition, but not quite. Jose beats you. I think, talking before, I think Angela is probably on the low side of the temperature. I'm kind of in the middle. But no, welcome, and I'm glad you've got your camera on, and just say hi to our audience.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar.
Perfect, thank you. So hopefully everyone is absolutely ready. And again, I'm going to shout this out to all of our audience. Now, if you can turn your camera on, please do, just because it is so much more interactive, and it's just nicer to see a lot of faces versus having some names. So unless your camera absolutely doesn't work, then please turn it on. Excellent. Then we've got some cameras coming on. Thank you, Domenico. Thank you, Matteo. Now, it's wonderful to see you guys. It makes it just more interesting and more interactive for us. Claudia, thank you so much. Okay, so let's jump into the first question for our speakers today. And the first question goes out to Angela. And again, if there are questions from the audience, please drop them into the chat box and we'll pick them up at the end of Angela's conversation or at the end during the Q&A. So Angela, I mean, when you think about it, with your vast experience in the automotive industry, what do you see as some of the emerging trends, challenges, growth opportunities within the operational leasing market? Not just today, but going forward as well. What does the road look like for the rest of us?
Oh, well, I think if you're looking here in terms of trends, I mean, we've been talking for some time about trends in mobility. You've obviously got trends in the vehicles themselves. You've got trends in the way that end users engage with companies, particularly through technology. And technology is one of my keen interests. I think when you're looking at scanning around the globe and you see what some of the big tech companies are doing. I was very interested to see that Apple launched an Apple Pay Later service. So having gone into the kind of Apple Pay, they now got an Apple Pay Later, which means you can spread payments over from 4 payments over 6 weeks. And I'm thinking from a consumer point of view, if you look at, typically when you have a problem with your tyre, you end up with a bill, you know, out of the blue, £600-700, maybe more. To be able to have that kind of service through your phone is incredible for consumers, and that's something which we know that when a consumer's taking a lease, often they do unbundle some of the services. Those are things to watch. And I think also you've got them further encroaching into what we call traditional financial services. So last week, again, Apple launched a savings account where they're paying 4.15%. which is quite incredible. And in the US market, what they've seen is what they call a deposit flight of over $60 billion moving from what you would call traditional mid-market, mid-size regional banks in people searching for the best interest rate. So I think you've got still, you can't be complacent around the big tech companies, particularly if they can see some opportunity. But then when you dive into the heart of real techie tech type of stuff, what you're seeing, and particularly a lot of the new mobility type solutions, I'm thinking things like subscription, even finding you know, the energy transition, finding your charging point. You've got a lot of tech players out there, a lot of startup tech players. Now when you get that, it's really interesting. You get a lot of innovation. You've got a lot of opportunity with 5G, for example, AI. I mean, the advances in AI is phenomenal. I'm assuming most of the audience have already tried ChatGPT and the like, but it is absolutely phenomenal what it can do. And you've got many, many other types of applications of that sort of thing, you know, where you'll be able to put vast data sets together and simply ask a question, tell me where most of my service maintenance and repair spend is going. Tell me which of my customers is costing me the most. Tell me what I should recommend to them to improve or reduce their costs. It really is incredible, the level of advancement. And I think, you know, you can start to see those types of algorithms being used for fleet optimization, logistics, utilization rates, you know, and even good old prediction of RVs.
I mean, that's you know, you've mentioned so much in so little time, because if you think about, you know, whether it's the new players, the non-traditional players coming into the marketplace, the non-traditional players, you know, potentially even expanding into different channels that you mentioned, and then you throw in the whole AI part of it and the developments that we're seeing there in the usages. You know, what's your biggest takeaway from everything that you've said? You know, what is your biggest takeaway with the biggest impact behind it?
Oh, by far it's AI, by far. I mean, if you look at the technology evolution over the decades and you think of the changes that something like the smartphone, so when Apple brought the smartphone out, I mean, that really did revolutionize the way that we interact with technology. But I think with AI, it could be as big as the Industrial Revolution. If you look at the power that it has for good and for harm, and there's a double-edged sword here. You know, already you've got applications where you can say, write me a presentation on the future of operational leasing, and the AI will build you a slide deck with appropriate images to give you a starter for 10. It's because it's using predictive language, it can be wrong, so you do have to check it, but it's learning and learning and learning, and the speed of processing power is huge. It's absolutely huge. So I think from AI we will see big changes in the way that people's jobs are evolving. You'll see changes in the speed at which you can process data and get results out of that for sure. So for me, AI is very, very relevant also to the operational leasing industry. And certainly we did a presentation yesterday to a number of thought leaders in the UK on the topic. And it is something that I think, you know, most boards should be talking about now.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And I mean, yeah, AI, the speed of analyzing data is absolutely incredible. I mean, to me, it's mind-boggling. I'm just getting started in the AI, and it's absolutely a fascinating topic, you know. And anything else, you know, that Jose or Ekaterina, you'd like to add in there? Any thoughts you'd like to add to that?
I would. Thanks, Angela. It was very, very interesting what you mentioned. I would like to hear your opinion on of the different players that are traditionally in operational leasing and the newcomers. How do you see in the future the role of the manufacturers? Because manufacturers have been coming and going into this with their vertical integration, then in the weak moments they left it, then they come over. How do you see the future of manufacturers into operational leasing?
I think there's always opportunities, and you see that exactly as you say, you've got OEMs who have their own captives that are providing those operational leasing services. However, interestingly, what you also see is a movement of some of those OEMs. They outsource some of the physical services to traditional leasing companies, which will provide those services on a white label basis. So I think there is a lot of room for people to play to their strengths. I think if you look at who's going to win, a leasing company funded by a bank, an OEM, or say a big tech, an Apple, I think the evolution in the market will really benefit those that collaborate well with people who have complementary strengths. And what leasing companies have got is decades and decades of experience of how to deal with what is actually quite a complex product. It's complex in not only the way it's calculated, you know, the risks associated, particularly with residual value, where you need, you know, real agility to sustain market shocks. And we've seen a few of those over the years. And I'm thinking, you know, the last big one really around Dieselgate. And also that ability to be able to manage across borders. I mean, the global fleet management is very important. The OEMs themselves have got quite a transition to think about, not only in terms of what the, you know, whether you're talking ICE to EV or alternative fuels, the road to net zero, but also, you know, cars are increasingly computers on wheels. So grappling with all that tech and all the data. And I do think having people who are good, and not just good, but very, very good at optimizing the specific part of that is of great value. And you see, so when you talk about, you know, data analysis, could anybody hope to ultimately rival what is being developed by these tech companies in terms of that capability? Well, you may do, but it'll probably take you a long time and you'll always lag. So if you want to be really good across the whole thing, and you know, especially the pace things are moving, I think the opportunity to collaborate between your leasing companies, your OEMs, and your tech players now is the time to be doing it. I hope that answers your question, Jose.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like everyone, you know, the best way maybe to optimize is go down in specialization and niche it down. Sorry, Kate, I interrupted you there. You wanted to add something in there.
Yes, please. Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Jose. Also, a question from my side to Angela will be, what would you recommend to the leasing company if it's want to be started right now? It's startup, imagine, in Europe. So what, let's say, main recommendations you can give to those companies who are starting up right now? I mean, operational leasing companies. Thank you.
Okay, so starting right now, I think you know, you need to find the niche, and you know, I was talking with someone yesterday who'd specifically set up to focus on EV leasing. And again, the growth in his business has been phenomenal in a very short period of time, and I think that focus is very important, and making sure that you've got to offer something slightly different, so you have to be able to package something if you don't want to compete purely price. And so the use of technology is very helpful to be able to keep cost base down, to keep agile. And the other thing is I would keep the product simple as you can, simple for the consumer to understand, but simple for the technology and the people in your organization to deliver, to ensure that you can deliver the best possible service. There is so much technology that can help keep those costs down, but you've got to avoid those interaction points where you're going to bring failure into your process and complexity into your process. So keep it simple and focus.
Thank you, Angela. And what the first 3 steps you would do if you are opening and starting up the company right now?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult one. Well, first of all, you really have to do some market analysis. I mean, one of the things that we've seen, if you look across Europe, which is where I'm familiar, you've seen significant consolidation across the leasing industry. I mean, if you look at ALD and LeasePlan merger, I mean, you're going to be, if you're starting today, you're going to be battling giants if you think you're going to go in and win an international fleet. However, what you do find is that there is still some value in proximity. So people buy from people if you're looking at setting up in, let's say, operational leasing for fleets. And so finding your area where you can become the expert on a specific topic that can help a business achieve its goals, whether that's you know, their energy transition, those types of things, where they will value you as an individual as opposed to the brand of your company, because you're up against some big players now, I think, and it's not impossible. As I say, I talked to a very successful business yesterday who was purely focused on EVs, but I think you would have to find your niche.
No, thank you. Anything else that you would like to add, or anyone else would quickly like to add? Because while you're thinking about the last, Angela, out of everything you've heard and said, what's the one sentence that's most important that stands out to you? And I'm going to let you think about it. In the meantime, I'm quickly going to ask anyone out there that has any questions for Angela or any other of our guest speakers, please, just type in the name if it's directed at Angela and a question for her. Just drop them into the chat box. We want to make sure we capture all your questions. So back to Angela. What is in your final sentence, what's the key takeaway from today's talk?
From whatever business line you're in, don't be complacent and scour what's happening with tech.
I like it. Scour what's happening with tech. So really keep a careful eye. And yeah, do your markets research, do your homework in order to play in this market. No, thank you so much. So we're going to give Angela a virtual round of applause, but thank you so much for that. Angela, don't go away, stay with us, because we're going to need your help in the next couple of sections too. So our next speaker is Jose, and I'm going to give Jose a warm welcome again. I'm hoping Jose's questions up there, because I've kind of lost my slides a little bit. But Jose, if I remember correctly, the topic for you is really going to be, what are some of the main challenges, that leasing companies are facing today as they transition? as the fleet moves from petrol to very much electric and hybrid, and how do you see this as, how can we use this? How can we benefit? Is it an advantage? How can we take advantage of this trend? Because it is happening. It's not a question of, is it going to happen? It's definitely going to happen. How do we take advantage of this?
Okay. All right. Well, the way I see it, the main challenge, and I'm putting on the hat of a leasing company. So I'm trying to think with those shoes. Definitely the main challenge I see is for the leasing company to remain as the main supplier, the consolidator of all mobility services. In the past, when operational leasing started some 50 years ago, everything was about running a car efficiently with a minimum cost. Then safety started to become an issue, but it was everything very much around the car. Today, with the disruption that we have, or we are experiencing in mobility, I mean, what we call mobility leaves the definition operational leasing company as very incomplete. An operational leasing company is much more than that, or it tries to be much more than that, and in many cases it is really becoming much more than that. It is so many things are happening around mobility. When you think of the example of electrification, which of course is a very important issue, but again, it's much more than changing an internal combustion engine car, a diesel car, to an electric car. That is very easily said. It's very easily for a board in a company that uses a fleet to decide to do that, but then to make it happen is much more. And we have to remember that the transition is not in the leasing company, the transition is in the fleet user.
Yeah.
The leasing company is the one that has to facilitate, has to help with the information, has to help with the knowledge, with the consultancy, almost becoming a mentor on how to do that and how to do it in the right way in the different places, because as I will touch into that, it varies very much. It's not something that happens from one day to the next. So the leasing company, and again, I keep using this very incomplete name, leasing company. The leasing company has an enormous challenge in acquiring knowledge of a wide range of new things that are happening around. As Angela mentioned, we have on one side all the regulations, and the regulations are totally different in a small city in the country than in Paris. The regulations are very different if you are in Europe than if you are in Latin America or in Africa, to go to the extreme, and I mean the extreme of the difference. So you need the companies need to acquire all this knowledge and to become real local advisor, the local advisor for the companies, and to guide them in that process. Many times also, and we should not underestimate this, the challenge of the leasing company is the actual client. The client says, okay, we're going to follow into a transition in 3 years, we're going to go electric. And then it's not so easy as to say that. So the leasing company is the one that has to put or set the tone or the speed or organize the process on how to do it. Because it's, as I say, it's very different if you have to, I don't know, international fleet, if you have to change or electrify your fleet I'll use again the example of France or in Mexico. It's a totally different story. When you have in Europe all sort of regulation and subsidies and incentives to push companies or to oblige even companies to make this transition, you have another country that perhaps the sale of electric vehicles represent 0.1% of the total sales. So you're talking of a different world altogether. And that in a country with 30 million vehicles in the car park, they tell you very happily that they have 400 chargers in the capital city. So you're not talking the same, but it's the same company. It's the same pharmaceutical or manufacturing company that is working in both countries, and they both have to, or they both know, they have to do it in both countries one way or another. So it's very different. And then you have, of course, the reality that today, electric cars are good for some things and not good for others. It's totally different even if we limit ourselves talking of Europe, where let's say it's a little bit more organized and the infrastructure is growing rapidly. So in most countries are slowly getting into a reasonable level. You can be talking about a different plan or program if for the LCVs, for the vans, than for the passenger cars. I mean, the van normally sleeps in the company's premises, so you can organize chargers. The cars, normally people take them home. And if the person has a very nice chalet in the outskirts of a city, then you can put him a charger at home. But if he lives in a 50-story block in the city center, and he has to park on the street, you're talking of a different story altogether. Because at the end of the line, the objective is not electrification. The objective is reducing emissions and reaching the target of zero emissions. And we should not forget that, and I always like to include it, companies have two zero targets: zero emissions and zero accidents. And those things have to go together, and they are going in the same way. But going back to the challenges again with the hat of the leasing company, is that, as I say, the client is a very important part. The organizing how to tell the client to do it and how to tell him not to do it. I'll give you a few perhaps politically incorrect examples. If the fleet that is running inside the city, electric is very good. Now, if the amount of kilometers they do inside the city is under 10,000 kilometers, then it's no good. Remember, to manufacture an electric car is about 15 tons of CO2. To manufacture a combustion engine car is about 6. So if you don't drive long enough to compensate that difference, it's much better to get a smaller gasoline car than getting electric, because you have to stop thinking of just what you consume in terms of kilowatts or liters of petrol. You have to look at the full cycle of, if I buy an electric car, I'm already emitting 16 tons. And that's part of the equation. And that is the knowledge, among many others, that the leasing company has to advise the client. Another very serious example, if you have city cars, hybrids are pretty good. If cars are mostly on highways, forget hybrids. If you want to reduce emissions, get a smaller car. And then, of course, one of the important tasks that the consultancy efforts of leasing companies do is help the company use the fleet efficiently. If you can reduce the number of cars by 10%, that's huge reduction in emissions. If you can reduce the amount of, by efficient route planning, reduce the amount of kilometers by 10%, that is huge. So that's the job that has to be done. And also, as Angela mentioned, and is embedded in everything I said, is technology. Technology is huge, the change that we have been, experimenting in the last few years. And again, leasing companies have to become have to acquire an expertise on how to use that. It's not, I remember at the beginning when telematics was coming, one of the problems of being old is that I remember when many things started, which is, anyway, I apologize for that. But I remember at the beginning when telematics was starting, and the logo was, we can provide 25 million data per second. So the poor fleet manager of the company says, I don't want 25 million data. I want perhaps 5, 6, 7, the KPIs that are useful for me. Well, using what today has become data intelligence and even fleet intelligence, the leasing company has a huge role. And perhaps a little bit to conclude is that I see that the leasing company has a very good starting position into being the full mobility supplier to companies, because they have the capacity and the knowledge on seeking for efficiency everywhere, that a tire can last a bit longer, that the car can consume a bit less, that the driver can crash a little bit less. I mean, all those aspects put together, and then now the acquiring of the knowledge of which is the best telematics that is good for this client, which is the best, the same way they have chosen which is the best insurance or which is the best car. And that localized, imagine if one of the big leasing companies is present in 30 or 40 countries, they have to know that for the 40 different countries. Very few companies can do that very quickly. So I think they have this, let's say, like a pole position of being able to grab that. Other players will become threats to the leasing company or tools to the leasing company. What I would call the winner is the one that manages to consolidate that knowledge, to use all the expert suppliers as part of their service offering, like the leasing in the old days chose the best tire supplier, the best garage, the best body shop supplier, the same way chooses the best telematic supplier. All these new things that have become part of this fleet efficiency that the client at the end wants. And I do believe that the one that consolidates, and I haven't even touched all the other alternatives, because you still have to consolidate that if the car cannot get into the city, you have to offer your client parking and an alternative, whether it's a scooter or ride sharing or whatever. I mean, all those things is what I call consolidation of a full mobility service. The leasing company that does that, I think, will have a fantastic opportunity. Others will not manage, and then they will simply be consolidated by somebody else. Funding and fleet management will be a service offered by a data company or by somebody like that. And the last comment I would like to say is that, again, thinking of a leasing company, still fleet management, to put it somehow, mobility management, today, in the vast majority of cases, is corporate. The client is corporate. But the private individual is not going to want any less. And so the leasing company has a huge, if it has a good service offering that is simple and accessible, all that has a huge opportunity of business in all the private individuals. And well, I finished my first answer like that, if that's enough.
No, Jose, thank you so much. I mean, wow. The way, because of the way the market and client and customer needs are changing, there's so many opportunities is what I'm hearing. I mean, there's opportunities where, traditional car leasing companies become full mobility suppliers. Literally you can supply from A to Z, but they need to be specialized in understanding, the requirements, the needs, and how to translate that. Because again, you said, from different countries, different challenges, different issues. So how do you bundle all of that together? Absolutely love it. Thank you so much. And I'm just quickly going to share it with everyone. Kate, Angela, anything from your side that you want to add or ask to Jose?
I noticed, Roberto, there is a question in the chat actually for Jose. Would you like me to read it out? It says it's from 𝗍𝗲𝗀𝗿𝘁𝗶. There we go. A question for Jose. You said an amazing concept. The challenge is not the electrification, but to reduce CO2. How could a leasing company help, for example, real estate operators and public transportation? What sort of bundling of businesses? I hope that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, well, I definitely agree on the reduction of CO2 as the real objective. Now, real estate operators, I'm not sure what that means, whether it's construction companies, public transportation, definitely. Public transportation is the easy way out. In fact, it's embarrassing. It's absolutely embarrassing that in the European cities, all public transportation is not electric. I mean, we should put all our governments to shame about that we still have, they talk a lot about what people should spend money on, and they don't do when you think a bus is the perfect, candidate for an electric vehicle. Yeah. It does exactly the same mileage every day, exactly the same route every day. You can plan exactly which type of electric motor you need for that bus. But so public transportation, definitely yes. Now, I would like Matthias, Sarah, to perhaps in another moment to I don't fully understand the bundling the businesses with real estate operators and public services, public transportation. Yeah. Sorry about that, Matthias.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe you can give us a little more detail drop it into the chat, and we'll make sure we catch it at the end. Kate, anything you wanted to add to any of the conversations and discussion we've had so far?
Yes, please. Thank you, Jose. So my question is, do you think that government can help, let's say, to make a good start to electrification of the fleet of leasing companies? Do you think they can help somehow, and how do you think they can help?
Well, governments, I like to think on good intentions. I don't always trust them, but I like to think on good intentions from governments. I think governments try to help. In fact, all the incentives, all the regulations, I am convinced that they are all with the best possible intentions trying to reach the same objective that we all want. You do have the conflict between, let's say many times, let's say the European regulations and the countries. The countries sometimes are following grudgingly the European regulations. Sometimes they are trying to find a way around. That is sad because it only creates confusion to the public. But if the question goes, how can the government help leasing companies? I would say that it's acknowledging what they are. Leased cars in every single country is the newest and best equipped and probably cleanest fleet in the whole country. If you take a country like Spain, where I am, where the average age of the fleet of the whole 30-something, 35 million cars in the country, is 12 years. The lease car with an average contract of 4 years, the age of the car is 2. So the cleanest cars, the safest cars, and the newest cars are the cars that are managed by the leasing companies. That is not acknowledged. Yeah. And it's a pity, because normally I take it to government ignorance more than bad will. Unfortunately, well, I should stop criticizing. My Latin side comes very quickly out into criticizing about governments.
Jose, thank you so much. Kate, hopefully that answered your question.
Yes, thank you. In a very accurate way, but yes.
Perfect. No, thank you. And again, to everyone, if you've got any other questions for Jose, for Angela, for Kate, please drop them into the chat box. We really want to get a chance to answer everyone's questions. I know Matthias dropped something in. Thank you so much. We will catch that one at the end. We have one more topic which I really don't want to miss, because a lot of people have come to hear Kate. So if I can get Kate up on the center screen, and Kate, the question for you is, how are leasing companies? How can they leverage all of this disruptive technology? We've spoken about AI. We've spoken about so many changing needs. But how can we use this to address the challenges we have?
So a lot of things already said, and I believe I will go to the direction with the government, because I think that this is a very important support that can come from there. If we're talking about changing the way of leasing companies are managing all the things, then we need some support. Investments. And I believe that we have to develop some rules. Not we, governments, has to develop some rules and some budgets which will go directly to the leasing companies. For instance, if I'm the customer and I want to select the best leasing company to move there all of my fleet, so what will I think about? I will think about pricing, of course. I will think about reputation, and now I will be focused on pricing issue, actually. So cost optimization. And if leasing companies today could offer electric cars for cheaper price than regular car, it will help. And this can be achieved only by some financing from the side of the government. It's logical. Just make the budget. So select companies. We have, for instance, today ALD and LeasePlan are joining. So it will be something very big. We have BNP Paribas based Arval. We have Athlon. We have Alphabet, and some others. But if governments of the countries, let's say in Europe, but also in other countries, can support, can make it very clear that they're going to this direction. They want to electrify the fleet. They want to make, to cut the reduction of CO2 and so on. But to prove that they really want it, they need to put the budget and to, let's say, tell, okay, leasing companies, now you have whatever, 1 billion, 5 billion, and we can invest there. So you can make better proposal to the customer in terms of money, simply. And also the other important thing here is that for some companies, electric cars cannot work, as we discussed it before. But if I'm sales representative of Pfizer or AstraZeneca, I need the car whole day, and sometimes I need to, for instance, if we're talking about large countries, I need more than even 500 kilometers per day. Sometimes I need 7 or 8 to move around. And this solution will not work unless we will make it so smart that we have charging stations everywhere. And actually, this is the first big step to make the city and the country electrified, because we're missing charging infrastructure simply. And we're missing it not only, even in Israel, which is technological hub, we have so many fantastic startups and technological solutions over here. But even here now, it's a challenge, and the country is quite small. But for instance, if you are planning the trip from Tel Aviv to Eilat, which is the same country, it's around 300 kilometers, let's say. So you cannot already select some cars, some electric cars, because some of them can manage only 250, for instance. And in between, right now, there are not dedicated charging stations. It's stupid and strange because it's Israel, but here also we have. But how we solve it, not we, how the country government solve it, they allow to install charging points, charging stations, wall connectors inside of the city where you live. So simply, you can use your own charging station. Of course, it's also it's cheaper in terms of like cost saving. I mean, if we compare fuel or diesel with electricity, it will be 50% less. So if we calculate and if we have charging station just in the house or on the parking lot, let's say it's manageable. But otherwise, while all the countries would not accept this kind of legislations that people can input charging station exactly in the home place and also in the business center they work. You know, it's simple, but it's important. And now we're starting up some projects connected with sharing, for instance. And the main issue over there, why it cannot move so fast, is charging infrastructure. So, I mean, the problem, is just infrastructure. And in some countries, you know, we have producers of electric cars from different parts of the world, also including China, but charging stations are not supported, let's say, in all the countries, in all European countries. So it's cheaper, but in some countries there is specific legislation connected with Chinese charging stations and sometimes even cars, so it cannot be so easily managed. And also, if we're talking about European producers, I think they now maybe don't have enough capacity, don't have enough production force to actually provide the market with a needed, let's say, amount of charging stations, charging points, and so on. So maybe my answer was a little bit complicated, but I'm just trying to find, you know, the main problems, because we really need to solve it. And like me, you, and Angela and Jose, we cannot solve it alone. We need to get some support, and the best support here is coming from the governments. I believe that it should work like this. What do you think, Roberto?
No, I love it. Thank you. I mean, absolutely. You know, we can't solve it alone, but we definitely need government support. And government support, let's get the foundational infrastructure in place everywhere we need. Once that's in place, then to speed it up is really to minimize the CO2 reduction, help us on the pricing side, either do some sort of price offsetting. I absolutely agree with that. Jose, Angela, anything you'd like to add? I see we're got a couple of minutes left. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please drop them into the chat box so we can catch up on those straight after this. But any final thoughts that you want to add, Angela or Jose, to what Kate was saying?
I was just going to mention two things. I think I'm very much somebody who likes to take ownership of doing what I can do, and I think we've probably got people on the listening into this who can help, and that's in the area of education. I often see surveys which demonstrate that drivers of vehicles simply don't have the correct understanding of something as basic as range, and there may be huge assumptions and range anxiety, which is unnecessary for most people's daily activity. Ekaterina touched on it. I think also the helping a company understand the total cost of ownership is so much more important than the pure price of the lease, because electric vehicles typically will have less service maintenance and repair. They may have slightly more tire wear, but it's not an equivalent, and of course the fueling cost is significantly less. So I think there's a whole area around education that the industry, the leasing companies, practitioners, consultants, etc., can really help. And the second thing is coming back to technology. I remain optimistic that we will identify better forms of battery technology. If you think back to your very first mobile phone, potentially, and the size of the battery and the evolution of that over time, and we know technology evolution is moving even faster today. We know there's big investments, in the US, big incentives to find that next level of technology. So I remain optimistic that as an industry, there's plenty we can do, and we will get there. Jose.
Well, I would just make one comment. Very interesting. Your very opinionated. Let's say the way you see the things. But I agree totally. However, I'm less of a fan for governments in general. But I totally agree that, for example, with the infrastructure, the charging infrastructure, it's a little bit in every country the chicken or the egg type of situation. You can't ask people or companies to invest in charging when still today we have different types of plugs. I mean, it's again going to embarrassing situations. If you take your computer from Madrid to London or from London to Madrid, you have to have a plug adapter. And that's the way we are. These very strange animals are called humans. And we are that way. And we have to fight it, and we have to try to correct it. But I agree that in things like infrastructure, the help of the government can be totally making the difference between happening or not happening. Because until we take away this concern, as Angela said, of the range, that whether informed or misinformed is very, very common, you can only cure it with infrastructure. Telling the guy you can stop for a coffee, and in 20 minutes, almost anywhere in the country, you'll be able to finish your coffee and keep on driving because your car will be 75% recharged. Government is essential for that. I cannot agree more with that. It's not fair to ask companies to make a risky investment without that support.
So again, it sounds like, government can play a bigger role, with the education alongside with, the infrastructure, and then absolutely opening up. I know we're running out of time. I know, Mattia, you have posted an update on your question in there. So I'm going to quickly ask Jose, I don't know if you've seen Mattia's update in the chat.
I'm reading it now.
Maybe you can give us a 60-second reply.
Okay. Well, if I understand what I'm reading, which again, I'm not 100% sure, I do understand that by real estate operators, now I understand as the owner of buildings that they rent to the tenants. And definitely with public transportation, that has to be, and hopefully is tried to be as harmonized as possible, so everybody has the service. And yes, if we could if we could help in integrating or bundling the services of the transportation with all the other private offerings, from sharing to shuttles. I mean, the idea of shuttles have advanced tremendously. In some cities, you have companies that are already going to buildings or to subdivisions of saying, we're going to put a private shuttle from here to downtown. Who would like to have it? If we have so many people, we'll put it. That sort of integration, I mean, it all helps. We need to share more, the same way that only a very happy few can have his own plane and fly alone. I fly normally in a plane with 200 or 300 people, and it's fine. So with the cars, I still like my comfort and my privacy, but the more we can share, like taking a bus, which is sharing, is better. Because again, we need to reduce emissions. That's the key point. And so I don't know, Mattia, if that answered you at all. If not, send me a mail or through LinkedIn, send me a question. I'll try to expand a little bit.
No, thank you so much, Mattia. Thank you so much, Jose. I just want to thank all of our wonderful speakers. Angela, Katarina, Jose, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for sharing all of your valuable knowledge. And again, to absolutely everyone, if there are any questions that you think of tonight, please drop one of the speakers, an email, get in contact with them on LinkedIn, reach out to them and let them answer your question. And just one final quick question. If anyone's got any thoughts on some of the questions or topics that you would potentially like to see in future webinars, drop those in. I'm going to give you guys a couple of 30 seconds. But certainly, thank you to absolutely everyone for having us. Thank you for your time. Apologies for running 2-3 minutes late. But I think we'll call it pretty much on time. But thank you so much to everyone, and wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you very much to everybody for participating.
Thank you. Thank everybody. And that concludes today's webinar. But thank you for being with us.